Yes, so we went live. So let me start with explaining what this event is about, as well as this Songs for World Peace is. So Songs for World Peace is a global initiative by musicians from all over the world to create and share songs about world peace. And our mission is to bring unity through the power of songwriting and music and share voices with the world. Today, September 21st, which is the International Day of Peace, we have released 30 more songs, and this year's release marks a total of 90 songs by 100 plus artists from 80 plus countries since our launch on International Day of Peace 2020. And our goal, which is a big goal, is to release 190 plus songs from 190 plus musicians from 190 plus countries all over the world, and all the countries performed in 60 plus languages. Okay, so this is a Peace Day live panel discussion, and we would like to, we invited panel guests who are incredible founders, organizers, directors, president of organizations who use their art to make social changes. And so I would like to introduce, hopefully I'm going to read it correct. So the first person is Bibiana Gutiérrez. She's an activist, communication strategy professional, and women's advocate, passionate, professionally driven, and committed to contribute and work to empower women. Bibiana is a president of UN Women USA San Francisco Bay Area chapter and executive director of the Global Voices Film Festival. She works at a national nonprofit based in the that's Boston, Bay Area that provides hands-on environmental science programs for children and teens. And we are so honored to partner with this Global Voices Film Festival this year. Thank you for coming, Bibiana. And let me introduce next person. Next person is Lola Hasla. She's a founder and director of Musicians Without Borders, an umbrella organization working with local musicians to bring social change and peaceful, livable conditions to their own communities. Lola started the organization 20 years ago, and in that time she has established impressive programs and training workshops in countries around the world. And Lola has been recognized for her vision and leadership as a recipient of a Raja Jan Ziwam Culture Prize and Kong Heart Prize, Joke Blom Award, and an Arabella Carter Award. Thank you for coming, Laura. And next person is Jeremy Hanneman, sorry. He's a co-director of Together Productions. Together Productions brings people together who may never otherwise meet to connect, collaborate, and create. They use music and the arts as the catalyst to break down barriers, reduce isolation, and enhance well-being. They produce high-quality artistic work that is grown through creative collaboration, participation, and experimentation. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming. And next person is Mariana Golovchenko. Sorry if I pronounced it right. And she's a project leader of Art27. Art27 is a platform for artists, arts educators, and art organizations working with refugees and asylum seekers in Europe and beyond. They stand for that arts have a vital role to play in creating more inclusive and culturally diverse societies. And everyone has a right to experience the art, develop their creativity, express their unique identity, and engage in their shared humanity. Thank you, Marianka, for coming. And next person is Sebastian Luth. He's a founder of Community Music Works and visiting lecturer at Yale School of Music. He's a musician, educator, and organizer who explores new roles for music making in contemporary society. He's the founder and artistic director of Community Music Works, a community-based organization that builds cohesive urban community through music education and performance in Providence, Rhode Island. He served as a visiting lecturer at the Yale School of Music, including an online course of the Coursera platform called Music and Social Action. That's how I met him. I get to know him. Sebastian is an enthusiastic participant on the US Department of Arts and Culture's cabinet with the title of Secretary of Music and Society, and he serves on the advisory board of a Sphinx organization. In 2020, he visited the White House to receive the National Arts and Humanities Youth Program Award from First Lady Michelle Obama on behalf of Community Music Works. And last panel that we have is Scott Johnson. He's a founder, executive director of World Singing Day. He founded World Singing Day in 2012, global singing along on third Saturday in October each year, with the purpose of bringing the world together through song. Thousands of people in over 30 countries have participated so far. In 2023, he co-founded a Positive Music Association, an international organization promoting music with universal life-affirming messages. In 2013, he received a POSI Award for outstanding contribution to positive music. Thank you for coming. Woo. As you know, we have so amazing guests, and we are really overwhelmed. And today we would like to share idea and how we can, as a personal level and also as an organizational level, how we can contribute using art and contribute to the positive social change. Now, with that being said, let's jump into the question. I would like to start with this question, and so when you're ready to answer, it would be great if you could raise hand, and then Yoshi gonna spotlight you and unmute. Okay, so the first question is, why did you decide to use art and music for social action? And on the way around is, and why chose social action as a goal or purpose through art and music? Those are two different questions, but it's a chicken and egg kind of question, I think. So whoever wants to go first, we would love to hear your answer. Yes, Laura. Let me ask you to unmute.
Thank you. So I'm just starting because I'm sure everybody has a good answer, but so I didn't grow up with the idea that art was something that wasn't social or that wasn't part of social action. I grew up in a community where there were many social activists involved in peace work and involved in work for equal rights and social justice. And in all of, or most of the activities that I sort of grew up in the center of, there was always singing, there was always music making, and it was understood that that was part of the process of bringing people together, connecting people, and advancing the ideas of social change. So both that connecting and also the reflecting out, the mirror function out to the community about issues that were going on was just part of what I grew up in. And I was for many years an activist in civil rights and peace work. And I sort of created a career in music. And then it became kind of instinctive and natural to bring those together in Musicians Without Borders, because to me, it's just a logical connection. I think we have to let go of the idea that music or any other arts is only something that that is external and needs to be learned. It's just also part of our communities. It's part of connecting, and it's part of telling a story.
Thank you. That's such a important and amazing answers. Which anyone wants to add to that, or anyone else wants to share?
I could jump in from there. Thank you so much for organizing this, and really wonderful to be here having this conversation with you all. Yeah, just jumping off from what Laura shared, I think maybe my experience was similar in that I think I grew up playing music and grew up thinking about values of being involved in important issues. And it seemed, maybe as I got closer to a career, it seemed like these two paths wanted to diverge, or that to be a musician meant to sort of be in this very specialized world of music making and music performing, and to some extent music teaching, that maybe didn't have as many direct links to some of the social justice issues that I cared about. And so really my career became about how do these things merge? And to the second part of your question, choosing social action as a goal or purpose through art and music, I think maybe there's something there about that essential connection, right? That actually art and music has everything to do inherently or intrinsically with a response to the world. And it's only in the kind of professionalization of these spheres that these things diverge. So yeah, I guess always trying to find a way to bring these activities together in a way that I think they're meant to be together.
Thank you. In your class, you also talked about many activists and musicians who is not sacrificing any of those, but merging those together. Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to? Yes, Scott. Let me spotlight you.
For me, I think it's a very personal thing. I think when I started writing music as a teenager, it was really kind of my therapy. Music has always been my therapy personally. And it's been my way of getting in touch with that wiser, more joyful part of myself. And I think World Singing Day is just an extension of that on a global scale, is to help people get in touch with that wiser, more joyful part of themselves, and also connect with each other at these sing-along events. So yeah, it's a very a personal experience.
Thank you. Yes, Jeremy. Let me ask you to unmute and also spotlight.
Thank you. Great to be here, and thank you for organizing this. For me, it's always been about the choir, actually, and about singing. And I grew up singing in a choir and took it for granted. And then I trained as a professional conductor, and I learned, just picking up what Sebastian was saying, that in the music world, there was a big divide between the professional and the amateur. And I found that very sad, because we were cutting ourselves off from an enormous source of wisdom. And we're often trained to sort of be the expert in the room, but actually you might be an expert at music, but the life experience of everyone in the room with you, all the communities that you work with, is incredible and tremendous. And the power, I don't think there's any culture on earth that doesn't have singing. Singing is something so primeval, goes back to the very source of humanity, maybe. And there's something that speaks to us. And group singing is something that is so profound and so beautiful and touches so many people. I've witnessed so many thousands of times, and each time it feels like a miracle, where when you get people singing together, that there's, the heartbeat synchronized, the breath synchronizes, and you forget that the person next to you has their opinion is this, and this other person's opinion is that, and this one is right, and this one is wrong, and this one is good, and this one is bad, and that one's evil, and that one's, whatever. It all disappears, and you just get to connect on the level of the soul, the level of the breath, the level of the heart, and you get to create something beautiful together. So I think that's really in a nutshell, what it is for me.
Thank you. That's such a strong statement, but we can all resonate a lot as a musicians. Thank you. Yes, Marianka, let me spotlight you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting as well. And I'm also, my background is a musician, so I grew up singing, so I can relate to many things that already the panelists talk about. But also as a representative of Art27 here today, I would like to also then maybe broaden it a bit, because I've got a chance to connect through the network with so many other artists from very different fields and directions, and I would disagree that it's only singing that unites in this way. So, for example, in dance world, you also have that, in theater world, and even circus, and somehow it works the same way, because it's a connection on a different sort of level, I guess, that is happening through the means that the artists are using. But in addition, I would also like to add that, speaking, it's not only for the social cohesion, but speaking of arts, it's not only about the social cohesion, but also about extension of voices of the society. So in that sense, as a professional artists, amateurs, but professionals as well, once you're on stage, you have the mic, or you have the stage, whatever it is, to say what you want to say out loud, so that the world can hear you, which is also a very essential part of to make any sort of impact and influence society. So that's my just small addition to what I've heard before. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianka. I think that's totally true in any part of form of art, or maybe even cooking. We can, it's a humanness that brings us together rather than differences of ideas. I thank you for the idea and your voice. Bibiana, would you like to add something on this?
Okay, thank you. And for me, it's good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for some of you. And I really appreciate the invitation to join. I didn't speak first just because I'm not connected directly to music. The work I do with UN Women USA San Francisco chapter and personally is in different area. But when I talked to Joshi and Itako about collaborating with Global Voices Film Festival, it's just because I believe in connection. I believe that any type of art connect us with the communities, bring the voices of people, in the platform. In a platform, it's the same thing that we do with Global Voices Film Festival, and the work we do is bring awareness, bring our communities together, and that for me is, as as a person that grew up in a small town in Mexico, and knowing how different is the opportunities that many of us have. It's just about that art connects people in the same way that film connect us, and the same way that we became aware of social issues through different mediums. And that's what is important for me when we talk, and also talk with some of you artists, and why we have some of them in this year film festival, because the messages are so important. The message wants to bring awareness, wants to in a certain way educate, heal, and want to do so much for our communities, that it's that primary core of what I believe and what also organization believes.
Thank you so much. When we can bring our art for the social changes, it's not just art that we are creating, but many of our artists, Songs for World Peace artists, wants to be a part of the movement, not just ending art as an art. And the next question, it leads to the next question, is that how do you, like each of you, use art and music to create social action and social movement, and make art and music to be a part of your movement instead of just keeping it as an art form? Because we have choice. Many of us, some of our artists cannot be publicly artists because of where she's from, because of her gender. But we have an option how we want to live, and how can we connect? Many of our artists wants to create movement more than just art and just release music today, beautiful music, yeah, and not that, but we want to do so much more. And how do you, each of you, use art and music to create movement? I'd like to hear your personal and also organizational point of view. Anyone? Yes, Jeremy, let me ask you to unmute.
I'm jumping in because I have to go shortly, so apologies. I can tell you what we do at Together Productions. It's both simple and complicated, which is that we have a project called Singing Our Lives. And Singing Our Lives is a composition project where we bring together people who otherwise meet. So that includes, we get up to sort of 200 to 300 people at a time. They are members of existing choirs, some of the choirs we run. There are, half of them are from refugee choirs, a choir we run called the Sing for Freedom Choir, which is for refugees who've experienced torture. And then we bring together some choirs for people with mental health, and then just sort of general choirs, but from parts of the UK that probably have never met people who, a lot of them have never met a refugee before. So a big part of our work is to get people together, to using songwriting as a way to get them to know each other, to build friendships, to get to know them on a personal level. It's a team building thing. We've devised a methodology to get 200 or 300 people to write a song together, and then we refine and work on the song. It takes quite a long time. We've just released today our 7th song called The Circle, which was a lot about people's experiences of lockdown and the pandemic. We don't tell people what the songs should be about. We never say, oh, tell refugees, tell us your story or anything like that. It's nothing like that. The songs could be about going to buy bread at the supermarket, or they could be a love story, or it could be anything at all. Sometimes the songs, and the songs have been hugely different. There've been some quite theatrical ones about a fight for justice. There've been love stories. There's been songs about finding refuge. There's been songs about what the experience is of missing someone who was close to you and is not there anymore. The songs are in many different languages and styles because we use whatever comes up. So people often use their native tongues as well. And yeah, the next step for us is to write an opera and read so we're looking for people who would like to be involved from all around the world. We've got some interesting partners in South Africa and India and the United States. So if anyone would like to be part of that, we would love to welcome you as part of that. But really the essence of the work is getting to know the other, which is to experience what it's like to see someone first as a human being, and then the labels come afterwards. So the label, which might be, you know, mother, father, sister, brother, refugee, torture survivor, gay, straight, whatever, all those labels are secondary. The first thing is to get them to know each other on a human level. So that's really the process. It's quite a simple thing, but it's a very subtle thing. It's not an overt political strategy that we use. It's just simply about getting to know each other on the level of the human being, forging a friendship, forging a relationship, and getting to see them as someone, as a co-creator as well. So you look at the other people in the choir, most of whom have absolutely no experience of writing music. And we engage them with some composers and librettists and writers and artists and drummers and all kinds of different instruments and things, and see what comes up. It's quite a chaotic process, but it's been really interesting and very beautiful. And the profound thing for us has been watching friendships develop between people who would never have normally taken place in a million years. So we've seen people become friends who actually have completely opposite political, social viewpoints, languages, cultural backgrounds, could not be further apart, and yet through this process they've gotten to know each other. So it's a simple thing, but it's been quite effective. So
thank you. That's totally so you're using music and art form and to create opportunity to meet people, and also creating music as a tool to bring people together in a personal level, by creating personal experience. I think really that's really powerful. Thank you. And then your music will be played on our next event.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Live event. Thank you for joining.
My pleasure. I'm so sorry I have to go. We've started live rehearsals again here in London after a year and a half. So that's super exciting. But I've got to go and actually take a live rehearsal. So that's exciting. Lovely to see you all, and happy Peace Day.
Happy Peace Day. Thank you. Okay, so that was really beautiful message. And who would like to go share your view or your personal thought? Oh, Paula, we're gonna have Q&A and for the artist to ask all the questions. So thank you. Yes, Sebastian, let me spotlight.
You know, one of the things listening to Jeremy speak was one of the things that came to my mind on this question of how do we use art and music to create social action and make it part of movements instead of keeping it separate. A couple of things come to mind. At our organization, the mission statement starts with creating cohesive urban community through music education and performance that transforms the lives of children, families, and musicians. And the key there is that we we don't claim that music is doing the transformation, but that music is incredibly vital and effective at creating cohesive urban community or bringing people together. And I think there's something very special in movement building about, I mean, as Jeremy was just describing, about the connections and the fellowship and the love that we kind of build and share, either as musical participants or even as audience members. But there is I think we've set out with that mission, kind of recognizing that community is really what's transformative, belonging to a group, feeling connected to others with shared purpose. But that musical experiences can bring us to that in a really, really special way. And there was a time a few years ago where this came into focus for us because we had an opportunity to bring together a lot of concerts especially during the sort of foreclosure crisis a decade ago or so, bring pop-up concerts into vacant homes and storefronts. And what we said was actually, maybe one of the real competencies of our organization was having people come together and feel that the person sitting next to them may be as important as a person in the room as the person on stage. And so the concerts were certainly concerts, but they were also, there was a meal that preceded, and at the table there was always a little bowl of sentence prompts, so you could pick up and start to have a conversation based on the prompt in your bowl with anyone at your table. And then of course the music is the experience we share together, and then there's more social activity. And I guess that feels pretty vital. It's just that art and music can be these places where we come together in unusual ways outside of our normal practices.
Thank you. Not just music, but music around circumstances and environment around music, creating something which is easier to talk to each other is also really, really important. I think I'm going to do that with the next concert. Thank you. Okay, so anybody else wants to go next? Yes, Laura. Let me ask you to unmute.
Strands in all of our work, clearly. What Musicians Without Borders, I recognize so much in what both Sebastian and Jeremy said. And most of what we do is to work in the context of war and armed conflict. And so we're working in regions where people either are in the midst of ongoing conflict, as for example in Palestine, or places that have suffered war, which has left divides and losses, such as, for example, Kosovo, where we work in an ethnically divided city that used to be a rock and roll city. So, that gave the opportunity to do something to reconnect young people through that piece of cultural history by starting an interethnic rock and roll school. But also in Rwanda, where we work with young people who are affected by HIV and train them to be able to work with thousands of children who otherwise would have no opportunity to have music. But the common thread, I think there are a number of them that, everything that both Sebastian and Jeremy said, I feel, the essence, we share it. I think maybe a couple of things that are peculiar or special to our work is that we're trying to address the issue of isolation, which is often part of what has happened to people in conflict situations. So being isolated, not only from others in your society, but often from the rest of the world. So we consider part of our work is really to be building a global network of musicians who are active in social change and peace building, and connecting among those musicians. So we work very closely with musicians and local organizations in these places to co-create projects that address whichever situation they are dealing with, and there are very many of them. So some are connected to education, others to health, others to ethnic division. But they're all informed by that idea of breaking through isolation. And I think another common theme is the question of identity, because one of the things that happens to people who've been marginalized by whatever's happened in their history is that they kind of get reduced to one piece of their identity. So if you're living in this city in northern Kosovo, you're either a Serb or an Albanian. But the fact that maybe you're an amazing artist or a drummer or a caring parent or a teacher doesn't really count. You only have that one bit of identity. And I know that many people who have experienced being in a refugee situation, they get into a place where people look at them only as a refugee. I remember meeting a Syrian violinist once in Berlin who was introduced as being a refugee. He said, "I'm not a refugee, I'm a violinist who has had a refugee experience." So I think one of the things that music and making music can do to address that is to open up the place where people can explore the complexity of their identities again. And through that complexity, then connect to people that otherwise they might not have had any connection with because of this experience. So, if you're living in this divided city and everybody on the other side of the river is perceived as an enemy, when you're yourself a passionate electric guitar player and you realize that that kid from the other side of the city happens to be an awesome drummer, you've got a space to connect. And I think that's a lot of the essence of what we do, is finding those places, not by forcing them on people, but by creating the opportunity to make music, by taking people's musical ambitions or passions or creativity seriously, and then letting that work its own magic among people and not forcing it on people, because it gives this opportunity to find yourself and your community and people that you lost again.
Wow, thank you. I'm not a refugee, but I'm a violinist. That word really, really stuck inside me. Thank you. Anybody else who wants to go next? Yes, Scott Johnson. Let me ask you, Dominic.
Yeah. For World Singing Day, what we do is it's basically just a community sing-along. And we create a safe, just very inviting space for all ages, all backgrounds. And it's not just for musicians or singers, it's for everybody. And that's why we usually sing popular songs from the Beatles to Katy Perry to whatever everybody is familiar with in all ages. It's so much fun to see a grandson singing with his grandfather, "I Don't Get No Satisfaction" from the Stones, or something like that. And it just, it's that shared feeling of joy and community that just breaks down all those barriers of, straight, gay, Republican, Democrat, whatever. And that's what I think the power of music has, that can connect on the heart, joyful level. And we can see beyond our different beliefs and philosophies and things. But for me, it's really about building community through music.
Thank you so much. Who would you like to go next? Possibly Marianka or yes, that's perfect.
Well, in our case, speaking of Art27, basically we are a movement of movers. So people who already have a movement or who are starting, and it goes from individuals and like individual initiative, when it's just one violinist or a visual artist wants to do something good and uses art as an extension, again, as a means to achieve that. And then it goes all the way to bigger organizations and established organizations that have been already in the field and already have a movement, created their own movement. Basically, well, the R27, we are specialized in European organizations, but we have a reach all over the world. And it's also actually quite impressive to see how this network is also essential, because sometimes when you are alone and one artist, it feels like you are so small. You are doing your best, and you're trying to be as big as possible to scream out about all the unfairness and, you know, like the values that you stand for. In our case, we are the basic human rights, basically. But when you're alone, that's, I mean, and also you can lead, of course, you can create your own movement, but when then you find out that there is another artist just like you, has his own movement, just of the like individual followers in another country, and then we connect, then it's usually quite impressive to see how these people connect, and how further on, maybe thanks to also to the globalization and all the digital possibilities that we have today, how these movements can grow through even panel discussions like that, or collaborative projects that can be also done online. And therefore, the movement is not only doesn't have to belong to a physical place anymore, which is incredible, and I think opens so many possibilities. So this is what we do and how we see the movement and our role in creating movements.
Thank you. It's amazing to know that there are places and there's organization who support that movement for individual artists, because individual artists can do only so much. But when we put together our voices and our forces together, our knowledge together, our wisdom together, we can do much more. And it's totally like, yes.
No, just something to add, because it's also, it's the beauty of it is that, when we speak about arts in general, I mean, we can create also, if you are a musician, but okay, you are not a great dancer, but then it just only gets amplified when you can collaborate with other art forms. And then it's first, it becomes more interesting artistically speaking. It becomes more also accessible for audiences that might not come to an opera, or might not go for a music concert, but would love a circus show, for example, you know, or go to a cinema. And you know, this merge of disciplines and genres, and art. What do you call it? Art forms coming together.
That's right. Like a certain genre people don't listen to. Well, we have certain genre that we like, but if there's opportunity to listen other art form as well, that opens up as well. Yes, totally. Thank you. Is there anything else that would like to add on? If not, I really want to ask the next question for our artists and for ourselves as well, which is, how can artists contribute to, especially Songs for World Peace artists, contribute to each organization? I know our artist has a mindset, they all work voluntarily and create songs for world peace because they are passionate about social change, and they don't want to just release songs today and then that's it. They want to be really a part of the movement, and if there is any there's something we can contribute, and also how each of us, each organization, each of us, how and what we can do as organization, groups of people that use art and music for social action can put our forces together to create a positive social movement. I would like to also leave the time for artists to ask questions, because this is one of the really few opportunity to ask you guys a question. But because this is, I think, benefit for all of us. I think it would be great if you guys can say like one short answer to that. Yes, Scott, let me spotlight.
So I'm just speaking for World Singing Day. That's what I'm into. One thing artists can do is to host a World Singing Day event, and it could be you having your own concert and inviting during your gig, inviting the audience to sing along on some of the songs that you're singing. That's really the crux of World Singing Day. It's really singing together. But I know also it's nice to be able to perform. So certainly have artists perform your own music and stuff, and then maybe invite them to sing with you on a few of the songs. By the way, World Singing Day is always the third Saturday in October, so it's coming up in about 3.5 weeks. We usually spend several months to plan for bigger events. But if you have a gig on the 16th of October, you could invite the people to sing along, and that's one simple way to be involved.
Thank you so much. Okay, if there is anybody else, also I'd like each of you to answer how as an organization or group of people as well, if possible, if you could combine that answer, it would be amazing. Yes, Laura.
Well, there's, I always think, first of all, use your stage, connect the issues, speak from your stage, and use your songwriting to address the social issues that you care about. Of course, peace, but to me, peace is always connected to the question of justice. And beyond that, I mean, at the moment, we're very concerned and involved with the question of refugees. We're organizing a training and summit in October, and we'll be hosting about 25 musicians who will be coming, among other things, to pick up some skills for being able to work with vulnerable people. There are many opportunities to do this, and people who can bring music to those who are in a refugee camp or on the move or stuck somewhere or newcomers. And very often, very skilled musicians can also use a number of pedagogical and didactical approaches and an understanding about how to work with people who are in this situation. It's a very different thing if you than teaching music in a music school to go into a refugee camp where you suddenly have 50 children of all different ages and language groups. How do you do that? How do you make music in that situation? So to follow us, if you're interested in that, and come and join a training at some point, that's just a very practical suggestion. And beyond that, as I said, use your stage to speak out, because we're in the midst of so many enormous global issues and crises. And I think we need the voices of musicians more than ever these days to speak out about peace and social justice and climate and the interconnections between these to the extent that you can.
Thank you, Lola. Yes, Marianka.
Well, in addition to what Laura has said, because R27 is also one of the projects of Musicians Without Borders, specifically made to advocate and educate and inform. And in addition to, of course, using the stage, and I think also I can speak from my own perspective, informing yourself is very essential. And seizing the moment, I would also like to say that as R27, we have a podcast that is called Resounding, where we invite different sort of movers, starting from the former director of Amnesty International, and going all the way to some storytellers, singer-songwriters, the people who work with World Health organizations, and many other. I mean, every month we have different guests to talk about like from the perspective of, yeah, maybe sometimes from philosophical perspective, sometimes from experience, of course, what they have observed, what they see happening, what is going on with the politics, and how the change could be made. Because it's unfortunately just talking about peace in general. It is a good start, but that only a start. So further on, the more you know, the more specific you get, and the more you can also probably direct yourself into, like what exactly you want to be talking from the stage, given that you have only that much of time in between the songs. So
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's totally, we cannot choose option that we don't see. And that's really, really important to inform ourselves, keep informing ourselves. Thank you. Anybody else? Sebastian or Bibiana, if possible. Oh, okay. Let me, Sebastian.
I'm conscious to get onto the questions as well. I guess I would just say briefly the question of what can groups do together, put forces together, and I'm thinking about the great activist and writer Lee Boggs, who at the end of her incredible 100-year life was writing a book about doing work in your local community with the people nearest you, and that's maybe the most profound social change work we can do. And this is someone who had worked for 7 decades on every major social justice movement in the US, and through protest, through political organizing. And at the end, she said, well, actually, protests are important, but mostly they maybe show that you're on the right side. What really we need to do is the long-term sustained work with our local community to fight for justice by building connections, by looking at the issues that are affecting people. I found that really inspiring, actually. And it's like, we do need to do movement building, but in a way it's like tying beautiful threads between deeply rooted local communities, so that we can support one another, so we can give each other courage on down days and things. But really, some of the really intensely profound, profoundly effective work does happen in our local places.
Thank you, Sebastian. Bibiana, if possible, let me spotlight you.
Yes, I'm mute. I was just, I was wanted to share. I do agree with so much what have been said. For me, it has to do a lot with use your voice to bring awareness to the issues that matter to you, and I think that's what I'm very connected to, and in the way that I also want to connect with other people to listen and to bring awareness to what matters to them. I think if I don't know what matters to the people, then I become a little bit blind. And I think what the work we do in Global Voices is that part, is to bring awareness to everything that other people are living and what matters to them. So not only I or some people know, but bringing this into more amplifying platform and into more people to become aware of what's going on, and to build that community, to build that relationship, to build that connection. And I think at one point, I hope to build a relationship that cares about each other and want to help each other, and find out that we are not so much different, that we have more things in common, and that we can do so much together. And when we learn about each other, for me, it's a lot about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know that we are almost the time, and I really want to have time for artists. So maybe one question or two questions from artist wants to ask any question to our panel guests. No, that's your time. This is our time. I have millions of questions that I needed to condense. Okay, then I will leave the description of each organizations on our after this video, when we publish the video on our page and website, on the Facebook page underneath the video. We're gonna put each of our panels URL so that when you're interested in those organizations, you guys can contact as well. Okay, so thank you so much for coming. And at the end, I know you guys probably have to go, but we're gonna play our finale songs that we created, and then want to end this. Yeah, thank you so much.
Somebody said, pain of our lives brings woe. Sometimes living is more painful than dying. Why does this happen? I don't know. Why does this happen? So what can I do? A girl is holding flowers. She brings the sun to the cold faces of her mom and dad. She looks around and wonders, I don't know. Why did that happen? So what can I do? I know we should. Someone who you love, others take the life of someone who you love. Why does that happen? Oh, I don't know. Why does that happen? So what can I do? The tears of the girl don't affect the tyrant chasers. Her words are trashed under the gloom. Why did that happen? I don't know. Why do we care? Because we know we have the same stars on the different faces. We declare peace. We declare.
Thank you so much for joining for this event. And our artists and then organization, amazing organizations can connect through this peace panel, and then we're gonna be able to create social movement, just not an art, but social movement through art. Thank you so much. And we have another event for the artist. We have another event, which is a release party of our for this year's songs. And then, if possible, please join as well. And thank you so much for joining for the panel guests. Thank you for sharing your voice, and we really, really appreciate that you took time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.